Hi, this is the Business Guy. So how much does a Cook Islands Trust cost? The cost varies depending on your needs. In fact, our firm has set up more Cook Islands Trusts than anyone in the world. On the low end, from an inexperienced provider, the cost is around $12,000 on up to around $50,000 to $75,000 for experienced attorneys. We've seen fees from $250,000 and $50,000 in annual maintenance for complex cases. And on the average, we're talking about $20,000 to $30,000 to set up as of the publishing of this video. Annual renewal fees include trustee fees and government fees, as well as possible ongoing retainer fees if you need continuous guidance. Thus, the renewal could cost a grand total of about $5,000 to $10,000 annual. There's also an offshore LLC that goes inside the trust for around $3,000 to $5,000. If you're already in litigation, the risk for the provider getting hauled into a deposition is going to be higher, so it's going to cost you more. If you have real estate, you'll need some extra entities, so that will affect the cost. We highly recommend that you use someone with experience. In fact, we've seen inexperienced attorneys make big mistakes in the drafting of the documents that resulted in legal issues for their clients. In our case, our management has been in the asset protection profession since 1991, and that would be me. And we know of no client who has lost money from a judgment with one of our Cook Islands trusts. Furthermore, we generally help the client place funds in a secure international bank account, such as one in Switzerland. Speaking of Switzerland, a man wants to deposit money at a Swiss bank. "How much money do you want to deposit?" asks the bank employee. The man whispers, $3 million. "You can speak up," says the bank clerk. "In Switzerland, there's no shame in being poor." Offshore trusts are one of the most effective ways to protect assets from creditors and lawsuits. And I encourage you to click the subscribe button below so that when more videos come out like this one, you'll be up to date right away. The Cook Islands is a popular jurisdiction for offshore trusts because of its strong asset protection laws and favorable court rulings. A Cook Islands trust can provide a high level of legal protection against U.S. civil claims and creditors. Here are some of the key features of Cook Islands trusts that make them attractive for asset protection. The Cook Islands is a self-governing territory that is not subject to the laws of the United States. This means that U.S. creditors cannot seize assets held in a Cook Islands trusts. Next, the Cook Islands has a long history of enforcing asset protection trusts. There have been many court cases in the Cook Islands that have upheld the validity of asset protection trusts. The Cook Islands trusts are governed by the Cook Islands International Trusts Act, which is one of the most comprehensive and protective asset protection laws in the world. If you're considering setting up an offshore trust to protect your assets, the Cook Islands is a good option to consider. It is important to consult with an experienced asset protection professional to ensure that your trust is structured properly and that you understand what is involved. Now, here are some of the factors that can affect the cost of a Cook Islands trust. The complexity of the trust. The more complex the trust, the more time and effort the attorney will need to put into it, which will increase the cost. For example, a trust with multiple beneficiaries, complex asset ownership structures, or special tax considerations will be more expensive to set up than a simple trust. The amount of assets involved. The more assets that are being placed in the trust, the higher the cost will be. This is because the attorney will need to take additional steps to protect the assets, such as drafting a detailed trust agreement and registering the existence of the trust with the Cook Islands government. The trust itself is private and not publicly filed. The experience of the attorney. A professional with more experience in setting up Cook Islands Trust will likely charge more than one with less experience. This is because the more experienced professional will be able to complete the work more efficiently and effectively with fewer mistakes. The speed of establishment. If you need the trust set up quickly, the professional may charge a premium for expedited services. This is because the professional will need to prioritize your case over other cases, which will increase the cost. The work required by the trustee. The trustee is a company responsible for managing the trust assets. The more work the trustee needs to do, the higher the fees will be. For example, a trust with frequent transactions or distributions will require more work from the trustee than a trust that is mostly inactive. It's important to note that those are just estimates, and the actual cost of setting up a Cook Islands trust may vary. It's always best to speak with us to get an accurate quote. Here's some additional things to keep in mind when setting up a Cook Islands trust. We assign our Cook Islands Trust Company law firm to act as trustee. The trustee is the organization that will manage the trust assets. We help you with the terms of the trust. This includes who will be the beneficiaries and how the assets will be distributed upon your passing. We then register the existence of the trust with the Cook Islands government. We do not file the trust itself, as we've said before, in the public records. So what do the fees include? Okay, since you asked, the fees associated with setting up an offshore trust typically include professional fees, drafting the trust documents, registering the trust with the relevant authorities, and providing ongoing support. Trustee fees. These are fees that would would pay to the Cook Islands Trustee Company law firm that will be responsible for managing your trust. The trustee fees will vary depending on the complexity of the trust and the amount of assets involved. Trust protector fees. This is an optional party who can help you do things such as changing trustee or changing trust jurisdiction in the rare instance that you need these amendments. And it's our standard procedure to contact you annually and collect these fees to make sure that your trust stays up to date for current and future legal protection. And it's important to note that the actual fees involved in setting up an offshore trust will vary depending on the specific circumstances. It's always best to speak with us first to get an accurate quote. You can make contact by filling out a free strategy session form at assetprotectionplanners.com. Are there any additional costs associated with Cook Islands Trust? There may be additional costs associated with the ongoing maintenance of a trust, such as accounting fees. These are fees an accounting firm, such as your CPA, charges to prepare financial statements and tax returns for your trust. You may use your own CPA, or we have CPAs who specialize in filling out these specific forms, and then you use your regular CPA to do the regular tax filing work. The amount of these fees will vary depending on the complexity of the trust and the amount of assets involved. Tax preparation and reporting fees. These fees are charged by a tax preparer to prepare and file the tax returns for your trust. The amount of these fees will vary depending on the complexity of the trust and the settler's tax situation. Bank fees. These are fees charged by the bank where the assets are held. The amount of these fees are typically similar to those at your local bank. We can also help you choose a money manager to help you invest your money to maximize your investment. Thus, the settler, the person who creates the trust, will need to budget for these additional costs setting up a Cook Islands trust. It is important to speak with a professional to get an accurate estimate of the total costs involved. Do Cook Islands trusts cost more than other trusts? The cost of setting up and maintaining a Cook Islands trust can be more expensive than trusts in other jurisdictions. And this is because the Cook Islands is a self-governing territory that is not subject to the laws of the United States. This means that U.S. creditors cannot seize assets in a Cook Islands trust. The Cook Islands also has a long history of enforcing asset protection trusts. There have been many court cases in the Cook Islands that have upheld the validity of the Cook Islands Asset Protection Trust. In addition, the offshore trust business in the Cook Islands is heavily regulated and requires skilled professionals to navigate. And this may result in slightly higher costs for legal advice, trustee services, and administrative expenses. However, it is important to note that the actual cost of a Cook Islands trust will vary depending on the additional items that you need and how involved your case is. Is a Cook Islands trust worth the cost? Again, the answer really depends on your situation and your risk level. If the amount you stand to lose is far greater than the cost of the trust, this may influence your decision. Here are some of the factors to consider. Your individual situation. Your financial situation, assets, and risk tolerance will all play a role in determining whether or not a Cook Islands trust is right for you. The level of asset protection you need. A Cook Islands trust can provide the highest level of asset protection possible, and it is important to understand the limitations of asset protection trusts before you set one up. The cost. The cost of setting up and maintaining an asset protection trust can be more expensive than other types of trusts. You need to make sure that the benefits of a Cook Islands trust outweigh the costs. The legal risks. There are some small legal risks associated with setting up a Cook Islands trust. You need to make sure that you understand the risks before you proceed. These risks may include things like you cannot protect your assets against the IRS if you know that you owe the IRS money before you set it up. What are the major Cook Islands trust benefits? Asset protection. Cook Islands Trust can provide a high level of asset protection from creditors, lawsuits, and other legal challenges. Privacy. The trust documents are not publicly registered, which provides privacy for the settler and the beneficiaries. Flexibility. Cook Islands Trust can be customized to meet the specific needs of the settler. Trustee protection. Cook Islands trustees are not bound by foreign court orders, which can help to protect the trust assets from creditors. Regulatory environment. The Cook Islands has a favorable regulatory environment for trusts, which can help minimize the risks of legal challenges. How do I set up a Cook Islands trust? The first step is to consult with an experienced professional, such as our organization, that specialize in Cook Islands trusts. Our attorney or consultant will help you determine if a Cook Islands trust is right for you and will guide you through the process of setting up the trust. What are the disadvantages of an offshore trust? First, cost. The cost of setting up and maintaining an offshore trust can be high. Complexity. Offshore trusts can be complex to set up and maintain. Of course, they're easy for us because we've done them for almost 30 years. Tax filings. Offshore trusts usually require tax filings for the settler and, upon the settler's passing, the beneficiaries. Regulation. Offshore trusts are subject to regulation in the jurisdiction where they're established and operated. Are Cook Islands trusts safe? The Cook Islands are considered to be safe and secure, and according to Transparency International and their annual Global Corruption Perceptions Index, New Zealand is one of the most trusted jurisdictions worldwide, and the Cook Islands are part of New Zealand. The Cook Islands has a strong legal system and a favorable regulatory environment for trusts. Many legal professionals suggest the Cook Islands Trust as the safest option for protecting assets from lawsuits. Conclusion: Cook Islands Trust can be valuable asset protection tools for individuals and businesses. There is no one-size-fits-all answer to the question, how much does the Cook Islands Trust cost? So we've discussed the cost of the Cook Islands Trust, we've gone over what is included, we have covered the benefits and disadvantages to give a balanced approach, and finally, we discussed the safety of a Cook Islands Trust. And it's important to know that this powerful tool may apply to your situation. We have experienced attorneys and consultants available to discuss your needs and to help you decide if a Cook Islands Trust is right for you. You can fill out a free strategy session form at assetprotectionplanners.com. This is the Business Guy.